Hello, everyone. I'm Billy.
And I'm Kamraun. Welcome to the HorseFrog
It ain't easy. No, I'm just kidding.
Welcome to the HorseFrog podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors and the creators of the Malazan Brotherhood.
And today we hold on, rented lips. Today we will be discussing Book 6, Chapter 17 of Gardens of the Moon, a novel set in the Malazan Books of the Fallen.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review, and it's most definitely not intended to be a replacement to reading the books. Both Billy and I believe this to be the best fantasy story ever written and want to share our love of the series with you.
We will be covering the events in the book in a linear fashion. There will be spoilers for those that have not read the book. We'll try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book. But knowing me and my loud mouth, I'm sure to spoil something for someone. So in advance, I'm sorry. Not like BP after creating an environmental catastrophe in the Gulf of Mexico kind of sorry, but I mean, I'm deeply, sincerely, I'm sorry.
Quick warning. Today's episode may contain a copious amount of uncertainty, paranoia, and scheming. There is a definitive lack of violence.
And our show is listener supported. If you'd like to support us, we would really appreciate that. So you can do that by visiting our Patreon link on our website at HorseFrogProductions.com.
Also, we would really like to hear from you. Send any feedback or comments to contact@horsefrogproductions.com. This week, we have an addition, well, technically two. Last week, we asked for audience input on the meeting between the reincarnated Tattersail and Perrin. We wanted to know if we were outliers when it came to a lack of interest with this specific subplot. We received two sets of input. Thank you for those that reached out. Livia, the Malazan potato noob, which we've heard from before, left a comment on YouTube stating she really liked that meeting between Tattersail and Perrin when she read it. She liked it because she wanted to see Perrin's reaction. She also notes that there is a power surge in readers every time when they have more knowledge than the characters, and it gives them a sense of control.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. And she thinks moments like these will be enjoyed by readers.
Yeah, I agree.
And then the other set of feedback we have is from Dane, one of our Patreon subscribers.
Dane.
This was Dane's first read-through of the book, and at that point where he read this, he felt this was very important.
Okay.
Tattersail was a major character, and her death had affected him. The connection between her and Perrin had been important. Now that he has finished the series, his thoughts have changed a bit for reasons we can't go into at this time. And based on this set of feedback, I tend to agree. First-time readers will find the scene incredibly impactful.
Yes.
And then jaded veterans of the series, not jaded, but you know what I mean. People that have been through it and they're rereading it may feel a bit different.
I agree.
And I suppose it should be expected that our thoughts will change with experience and time.
Yeah, and I agree. And thanks, Olivia. We really appreciate that feedback. Fantastic feedback.
Yeah, and Dane, thank you as well.
Yes. Dane.
All right, Chapter 17. The chapter begins with Rallick Nom. He approached the Phoenix Inn from the alleyway. Mies stepped out from a shadowed corner and confronted him. Rallick raised an eyebrow and asked what she wanted. Mies grinned invitingly and said, "Never mind what I want. You've known about that for years. Anyway, I come to tell you something, Nom, so relax." A little forward there.
I mean, look where she works, man. It's a pretty rough establishment.
It is. Rallick crossed his arms and waited for her message. She glanced up the alley, then hunched close to him and told him someone was in the bar asking for him by name. This startled Rallick, and he straightened up, asking what this person looked like. Mies said he looked like a soldier out of uniform and that she had never seen him before. She asked what Rallick thought. He told her nothing and asked where the man sat. Mies grinned and told him the man sat at Kruppa's table. Rallick stepped past her to walk into the bar. She moved to follow, and he told her to wait and leave a minute between them before she entered. He then asked where Irilta was. Mies told him she was inside and wished Rallick luck. Rallick muttered, "Luck's never free," then continued into the inn. And that certainly seems to be the case in this universe, isn't it?
Oh, most assuredly. I would rather have genuine luck than the malicious, capricious twins kind of luck. Do they just sit around all day deciding who's lucky?
Apparently so. And their mood can definitely affect your luck, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Rallick stood in the doorway and surveyed the crowd. There were only a few strangers, and it wasn't enough to cause him concern. He looked to the man sitting at Kruppa's table and almost had to do a double take since the man was so nondescript. Rallick strode directly to the man and noticed how the crowd melted away before him. Somehow he had never noticed this before, and it amused him. He held his gaze on the stranger until the man noticed him. They locked gazes, and the only move the man made was to drink out of his tankard. Rallick walked up to the table and sat down. He introduced himself. Something about the man relaxed Rallick in spite of his cautious nature. There was a solidity to the man, a kind of assurance that he found calming. The man quietly said, "The eel has a message for you. Direct by word of mouth only. Before I deliver it, though, I'm to give you some background as only I can." Rallick's ease dropped upon hearing these words. The man continued, "Now, Turban Orr has hired another dozen hunters. What are they hunting? Well, me, for one. Your problem is that he's going to be harder to reach. The eel approves of your efforts concerning Lady Simtal. Call's return is desired by all who value integrity and honor within the council. If you require anything, ask now and it's yours." Rallick quipped, "Never knew Murillo had such a big mouth." The man shook his head and said, "Your compatriot has revealed nothing, nor have you. It is the eel's business. Now, what do you require?"
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to say something. I love that I can actually hear the capitalization of the eel. I love that. I love that. I can feel that one. I love that, dude.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you for showing me that.
Put some stank on it.
Yeah, you did. I love it. Wasn't quite in the ass yet, but we're
okay. We're getting there. Yeah,
we're getting there.
Rallick told him nothing. The man asked, "What do they require?" And Rallick said nothing.
Yeah.
The man nodded and said, "Good. Incidentally, Turban Orr's efforts to pass the proclamation have been impeded indefinitely. The eel wished to thank you for your unwitting role in that. Nevertheless, the councilman explores other options. He has been watched closely, hence our fortunate discovery that is at the heart of the eel's message to you. Last night, beneath Despot's Barbican, Turban Orr met with a representative of the Assassins Guild. How he managed that was quite a feat, considering how difficult your comrades have been to find. In any case, a contract was tendered by Turban Orr." Rallick had a shocked look on his face, and the man waited for it to wear off before he continued. "Tendered by Turban Orr, as I said, but not on his own behalf. Rather, Lady Simtal has decided that Call's death should be a fact in the real world as it is on paper."
Ouch. Now notice I don't feel you saying the capitals on the other people's names.
Yeah,
because they're just normal names and not titles like the eel.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, it's hard to not say the eel is a great name.
Well,
dude.
you have to say it
I get
like
it.
that.
Yeah,
I feel
that's true.
it's almost like a rule because he's mysterious. No one knows who this person is, and they're trying to find out. Right? I mean, even Baruch is annoyed with this guy, and Baruch's probably the most powerful person in Darujistan that we're aware of.
Yeah, I guess him and Mamet. Yeah, him and Mamet, right?
Mamet, I mean, I would say Mamet defers to Baruch. Realistically,
Baruch is obviously the leader, I think, of that little
but
bunch.
Then Vorkin, who we really haven't been introduced to, even that she makes Baruch nervous. So I would say she's probably the most dangerous person in Darujistan that we've heard of. But we know who she is. The eel. Yes, nobody knows who the eel is.
Okay, nice. Well put, sir.
All right. Rallick asked who had the contract. Hold on, let me backtrack a little bit. Okay. So how would you want me to say Simtal's name?
I don't know. I was just
how do you say harlot without saying harlot?
Oh my word! I guess I don't know. It's Lady Simtal.
Lady? No, I don't know.
I didn't put the emphasis on the lady. It was the Lady Simtal.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah, definitely. All right. Rallick asked who had the contract. The man told him he'd get to that, but first, the contract was accepted since the payment had been substantial. They knew Call was out of Darujistan at the moment and only awaited his return. Rallick again asked who had the contract. The man told him, Ocelot. Now, that's a tough break for Ocelot there. Maybe he shouldn't have acted the way he did towards Rallick earlier in the book.
You better believe there's a paddling coming for taking a hit on a friend of Rallick's. I mean, dude, that's not a good idea.
No, it's not. The man got up and said, "The eel wishes you success in all your ventures, Rallick Nom." Thus the message ends. Good evening. He turned to leave. Rallick stopped him to thank him. The man smiled, then left. Rallick rose and took the man's seat at the table, then waved to Salty, who had been waiting with a pitcher of ale and a tankard. Salty hurried over, followed by Arilta and Mies, who sat down at the table with Rallick. Arilta raised a tankard and said, "Everybody's still breathing, and here's to that." Mies lifted her tankard as well, and both women drank deep. What do these two look like to you?
Dude, I imagine thick German serving wenches. You know, something from like, have you ever seen Where Eagles Dare?
I love that movie.
I love that movie too. I love that movie too. But yeah, some one of those girls, except not, but realistically would look like that woman you've got underneath there.
So for the audience, for me, I envision someone that looks like the world record hammer thrower from Poland, Anita, I'm going to butcher this last name, Volardzik.
I think that's pretty nicely said, sir. I think that's probably pretty close.
Okay. When I saw her throw this world record throw, I was like, man, I mean, she looks stronger than me, and I work out all the time. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure she's stronger than me. Beefy woman.
Yeah.
But either way, yeah, she has the build of what you would expect here, I think.
Yeah, well, Polish, German, whatever, same difference. It's exactly who I'm picturing. I've never seen this woman tell this picture before, but that's exactly who I am imagining. But to qualify the German-Polish remark, I am in fact descended from German, Czech, and probably a little Pole in there for good measure. So, viva la Pole.
All right. Mies leaned forward and asked if there had been word about Kruppa and Crocus. Rallick shook his head, then told them he may not be around when they came back. He said, "Tell Murillo to go ahead if I don't show, and if other events occur. And if that happens, tell him our man's eyes are open." He filled his tankard and drained it, then rose. He said, "Don't wish me luck." Mies had a worried expression on her face, and she asked, "How about success?" Rallick jerked his head in a nod and left. Love Rallick, man.
Yeah, I think you and I both agree. Rallick and Kalam are just like, I think, two of our favorite human assassins. Would that be the best way of putting it?
Absolutely.
Two of the best human assassins in the series, I think. There's a couple other bad boys in there too. There's people I've forgotten, and we will encounter them as we, Lord willing, as we get through this series. So,
yeah, in this book, you really don't get a good read on Rallick too much.
No.
So far, we've really only gotten a little bit of insight into his psyche and what drives him, and he's kind of clinging to this last grasp at humanity for his friend Call.
I agree, and apart from me, a big love of Rallick and of just this extent he goes to is what he does later on in this chapter, as we'll get to that. It showed me whoa, he's willing to do something that we don't know what could be. And we'll get there.
What the outcome will be.
Thank you. Exactly.
Right.
What the outcome of doing this would be. It's kind of risky,
Mm-hmm. Anamander Rake was once again visiting with Baruch. They both sat in front of the fireplace. Baruch was moodily staring into the fireplace as he ate a piece of Daru flatbread and washed it down with goat milk. He was certain that Rake was hiding something from him, and was questioning why Rake would allow an Imas to enter the barrow of the Jaghut tyrant. Should I be saying Jaghut tyrant in a certain way?
Dude, I think
now you got me wondering if I need to
no
deliver these names.
It's like no, I'm just teasing. It's just the Jaghuts already inspire me with fear because I know about the Jags. What little bit I know about them is horrifying. It's like, thank you.
Horrifying? You think?
Intimidating.
That whole thing about mind controlling and with just mind controlling one bone caster being able to take over a continent and kill gods, that's pretty terrifying.
Yes, it is.
But outside of that, the normal Jaghuts, the stuff we've heard of, they're kind of reclusive.
Yeah, they're kind of passive, ain't they?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, tend to retreat.
Yeah.
Baruch has asked Rake why he had allowed this to happen and had not received an answer. He only saw Rake's irritating smugness. Baruch bit the bread, and Rake commented on the strangeness of the hour in relation to dining. Baruch said all his hours had been odd lately. Rake told Baruch that he'd had no idea that both the Shadow Lord and Opan had become involved in affairs. Baruch felt Rake looking at him, but he continued to stare into the fire and said, I had an intimation of Opan, but nothing definite. Rake snorted. Baruch drank some milk and said, You hold your hunches close to your chest. I do the same. Rake snapped, This avails us nothing! Baruch turned to face Rake and said, Your ravens watched that woman and the Talan Imas enter the barrow. Do you still believe they will fail? Rake said, Do you? I seem to recall that was your position on the matter, Baruch. As far as I was and am concerned, I don't much care whether they succeed or not. Either way, there will be a fight. I suspect you'd imagine there would be a way to avoid one. Obviously, your intelligence concerning the Malazan Empire is sorely lacking. Lasine knows only one thing, and that's force. She'll ignore power until it's unveiled, and then she'll hit you with everything at her disposal. Baruch said, And you just wait for it to happen? That's how cities are destroyed. That's how thousands of people die. Does any of that matter to you, Animander Rake, so long as you win in the end? Rake wore a thin smile and said, An accurate assessment, Baruch. In this case, however, Lasine wants Darujhistan intact. I mean to prevent that. But destroying the city to defy her would be too easy. I could have managed that weeks ago. No, I want Darujhistan to remain as it is, yet out of Lasine's reach. That, alchemist, is victory. I would not have sought an alliance with you otherwise. Baruch said, Unless you plan treachery. Rake studied his hands for a time, then said, Baruch, as any commander of long standing knows, treachery breeds its own. Once committed, whether against an enemy or an ally, it becomes a legitimate choice for everyone in your command, from the lowest private seeking promotion to your personal aides, bodyguards, and officers. My people know of our alliance with you, alchemist. If I were to betray it, I would not long remain the Lord of Moonspawn, and rightly so. I love that entire statement.
Mm-hmm.
I had that quote highlighted from an earlier read-through, and what a great leader he is. It's also a very important life lesson there.
Absolutely. And that's very cool that you have that highlighted, because I too have that highlighted from my first read-through.
Yeah.
I love that comment about the treachery, or, once you do it, it becomes a viable thing for everyone under you to do it. And it's like, so I really like, he is definitely something. I love Rake.
Right. And the fundamental concept is lead by example. You set the standard as a leader. Anybody that's under you sees your behavior and emulates it. If you're doing something that generally is unacceptable, they're going to say, well, they're doing it. Why can't I do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Baruch smiled and asked who would challenge Rake's power. Rake said, Caladan Brood for one. And then there's my 4 assassin mages. Even Solana, the dweller within Moon's caverns, might take it upon herself to exact judgment on me. I can think of others, Baruch, many others. Baruch asked, So fear holds you in check, son of darkness? This caused Rake to scowl. He said, That title is held by those fools who think me worthy of worship. I dislike it, Baruch, and would not hear it again from you. Does fear hold me in check? No. As powerful as fear is, it is no match for what compels me. Duty. And again, it's like 2 paragraphs in a row with this guy. What an amazing set of values. Yeah. Absolutely love it.
I agree. And it's like, I'm going to have to ask the question. Lawful good?
Yes, 100%.
That's what I think. After much consideration, I think Rake is probably the prime good guy.
Yes.
Is this saying too much?
No. I mean, you're not really saying...
Can I say what I think here? He's to me, he's like a surgeon / doctor. He seems to know what's bad for the entirety of creation, and he's acting accordingly.
Yeah, I don't think that gives away too much.
Okay. And in a list of favorite characters, I know Rake ranks some of the higher echelons of characters I assume that you love. But a true list of the problem with it's not a problem. But the only problem with the Malazan favorites list is in my honest opinion, is that to make a list, you can't just make a top 10 list. You have to list it by categories, like favorite ascendant, god, immortal, or human, or assassin, or, I don't even know where you'd begin to make the category breakdown.
I actually had never considered breaking it down like that, but I think that's an excellent suggestion, because when I look at my top 10, there might be 1 or 2 ascendants in there, but I gravitate towards humans.
Yeah.
Because the ones that I love most have qualities that I want to emulate. And I'm not saying Rake doesn't have qualities that I want to emulate, but he's otherworldly, right? This is a person that lives
very alien.
Right. And people that live normal lifespans, it's more reasonable to think I could be more like this person, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then as far as ascendants go, I think Rake is among the top, again, because of the values he upholds and the way he carries himself. He is absolutely in control of himself, and he's extremely honorable. And he bears the weight and responsibility of carrying Dragnipur with an elegance of poise that I really like.
Yeah. He has this, that's the traditional, as one of your great superheroes, especially Peter Parker, the Spider-Man, his is a responsibility of power.
Yes.
He is driven by the fact that he is this powerful, and it is his responsibility to bear it and bear it well.
Yes. And then as we learn more about his decision to use or not use the sword, you come to respect him more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still looking at his hands, Rake turned them palms up. He said, "You have a duty to your city, Baruch. It drives you, shapes you. I'm no stranger to such a thing. Within Moonspawn are the last of the Tist Andi on this world. We are dying, alchemist. No cause seems great enough to return to my people the zest for life. I try, but inspiration has never been a great talent of mine. Even this Malazan Empire could not make us rise to defend ourselves, until we ran out of places to run to. We still die on this continent. Better that it be by the sword." Rake's hand slipped out of his lap, and he said, "Imagine your spirit dying while your body lives on. Not for 10 years, not for 50, but a body that lives on for 15, 20,000 years. What do you think the ideal lifespan is?"
Man, I always thought it was going to be in the 120, 130, even up to the 150 range would be ideal if you could be in good health.
Yeah.
It's like I list in my list, like Moses and Joshua, those guys were like in their prime. They still felt like they were in their prime, it says, until they died. So I'm kind of like, all right, right on.
Yeah, like if you could kind of maintain your level of like 40-year-old to 50-year-old health through like 110 or so. Yeah. And then you have your old age after that. I think that'd be good. Yeah.
That'd be great. I don't think I'd want to live much longer than that on this planet.
Yeah, think about how the world evolves. The people that were in the Great Depression, our grandparents, they were alive when computers started to become a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so late in their lives that it was difficult for many to adjust to that. It was just too alien. Right? And then now we're starting to get into AI, and that is going to be kind of the next frontier.
Yeah.
Social media was right before this. People had a difficulty adjusting to that initially, and we're still learning from the mistakes there.
I'm just now getting into social media.
AI is going to be the next frontier that we have to tackle, and there's going to be people that have difficulty adjusting to that. People are going to lose their jobs, all that kind of stuff.
What's so bad with the AI is I just showed KP 2001. She wanted to watch it, and she really liked it, but it's like, how? What a bad fellow, what a bad rap he gets, but he is, he's our first cinematic AI, and it's not pretty. So we people my age, and your age probably still have that like we also think of Terminator
Skynet.
2.
Yes.
Skynet. It's like I'm terrified of Skynet, man. It's like I don't want that happening.
Yeah. But now that's intrinsically linked with Trapper Keeper episode of South Park.
Oh my gosh, yes. Thank you for being the South Park reference today, yes. What are you doing, Kyle?
I can't let you do that, Kyle.
Oh my good gracious.
One of the greats.
Oh, that's a top tenner for sure, man. That is for sure. Trapper Keeper Bill. I am Bill Cosby.
The Trapper Keeper Ultra Keeper 2000.
Dawson's Creek edition.
Yeah.
Don't forget that. It's the Dawson's Creek edition.
That really ages it, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
25-year-old episode.
I just can't think of what the song is that Cartman makes. I just can't wait for lunch. For lunchtime to be over. I can't sing it because I'm laughing too hard.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I wish you had a webcam because you would have me just slapping and stomping on the ground at that reference to the Trapper Keeper. Oh my good gracious, you got me with that one. Amazing.
Maybe one day we'll evolve to video podcasts.
Yeah, maybe. That'd be great.
In studio live.
Yeah. With the HorseFrog boys.
Rake quickly stood up and looked down at Baruch. Rake's smile hurt Baruch's heart. Rake said, "Thus duty holds me, yet a duty that is in itself hollow. Is it enough to preserve the Tistandi? Simply preserve them? Do I raise Moonspawn into the heavens, where we live on, beyond any risk, any threat? What then will I be preserving? A history, a particular point of view. He shrugged and went on. The history is done, Baruch, and the Tistandi point of view is one of disinterest, stoicism, and quiet, empty despair. Are these gifts to the world worthy of preservation? I think not. That's pretty sad, the way he's summarizing.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is. Well, he's think how old he is, man. At least he seems to be more together than the other folks.
He is, yeah. He holds it together, but he
knows he's
more than just a regular Tistandi.
Yeah, that's true.
He also has purpose,
is it glorious purpose?
Yeah,
I think it is too.
It's a driving force for people to stay alive with a sense of purpose.
It is.
You will live longer.
That's true.
Baruch had no immediate response. After a time, he said, "And yet here you are, allied with the Empire's victims. Do you stand alone in this, Animander Rake? Do your people approve?" Rake said, "They care not. They accept my commands. They follow me. They serve Caladan brood when I ask them to, and they die in the mud and forests of a land that is not their own, in a war not their own, for a people who are terrified of them." Baruch frowned and asked why they were helping. Rake gave a harsh laugh. Then the amusement left him, and he said, "Is an honorable cause worth anything these days? Does it matter that we've borrowed it? We fight as well as any man. We die alongside them, mercenaries of the spirit. And even that is a coin we scarcely value. Why? It doesn't matter why. But we never betray our allies. I know you are worried that I did nothing to prevent the Talanai mass from entering the barrow. I believe the Jaghut tyrant will be freed, Baruch. But better now, with me here beside you, than at some other time when the Jaghut has no one capable of opposing him. We'll take this legend and carve the life from it, alchemist, and never again will the threat haunt you." Given what we know about the power level of the Jaghut tyrant, I think it's really interesting how confident Rake is that he can defend Darujhistan against it. And I'd like to know more about what he's faced in his lifetime. We need one of Tool's introductions for Rake.
Oh, man, that would be awesome. And it would take, like, how many, 5 years to get through the titles.
Yeah.
And especially if another 7 cities, is he 7 cities? If another native of ours that we like from a later story were to lake, he might enrich it a little bit more.
Oh, yes.
Korab.
Yeah.
The glorious one,
Definitely tons of honorifics from him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Baruch stared at him and asked if he was certain he'd be able to destroy the Jaghut tyrant. Rake told him he wasn't certain, but when the tyrant was done with them, it would fall to the Cabal to finish things. He said there was no certainty in this, and that was an issue for humans. They'd better learn to accept it. Even if they destroyed the tyrant, it would still serve Lassine's plans. Baruch said he didn't understand. Rake said the Tistandi would be much reduced, and then the powers of the Malazan Empire would arrive. Either way, Lassine would win. The only thing worrying her was the Torud Cabal, since she knew nothing of their abilities, which was why the Claw were attempting to contact Vorkin. Her accepting the contract would solve Lassine's problem. Baruch mentioned there were other factors involved. Rake said, Opan. That is a danger to everyone involved. Do you think Opan cares for Immortal City, for its people? It is the nexus of power that matters to Opan, the whirlwind where games get nasty. Will immortal blood be spilled? That's the question the gods are eager to have answered. Baruch said, well, at least we've avoided that so far, and took a sip of his goat milk. Rake told him he was wrong. When Shadowthrone was forced out of the game, the first immortal blood had been spilled. Baruch almost choked on his milk. He set his glass down and asked whose blood had been spilled. Rake said that 2 hounds had died to Dragnapur, and he believed it knocked Shadowthrone off balance. Baruch noted that the stakes had risen. Rake said, as far as moon's spawn, alchemist. High in the sky.
Yeah, immortal and a sense of humor. I love it.
Yeah. Rake sat back down and stretched his legs out to the fire. Such a Rake move there.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Boots on the fire.
Yeah. He asked, now what can you tell me about this Jaghut tyrant? I recall you said you wished to consult an authority. Baruch threw the rest of his bread in the fire and said, "There's a problem there, Rake. I'm hoping you can help explain what's happened. Please follow me." Rake grunted as he climbed to his feet. Baruch noted that Rake hadn't worn Dragnapur on his visit this night. His back looked incomplete, but Baruch was thankful the weapon wasn't there. I wonder who's keeping an eye on Dragnapur in his absence.
Dude, I think Dragnapur watches itself. I don't know of any other entities in this series, but maybe one or two that might be able to carry that thing. It's kind of like Mjolnir, isn't it?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, in a way, it's not really worthiness based, right? But it is an unbearable weight.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I believe it is. It's unbearable.
Yeah.
And it's just, because think about it, it's without the sword, it seems like when he carries a sword, that's what does the sagging on the foundations. It's what does all the pressure. It's the thing, it's like that thing is like heavy to carry, apparently.
Heavy.
Let me ask you this. Does it get heavier with each soul?
I have to think so.
I've never thought about it like that.
I really think it does.
Oh, my good gracious. That's awful. Okay. Okay. That even makes it more awful. Okay.
Unless it's like a bag of holding somehow. But I tend to think the effects that it has when it comes into the area of, like, when he arrived with Perrin and, it flattened the grass and stuff. That's, you could attribute that to one of two things, either the sword's presence or him unveiling his Warren. So unclear on which it is. I tend to lean more on the side of it's the sword's influence.
Yeah, that's kind of how that's how I always read it too.
Okay.
Because it seems like when he's by himself, it's like he can access the Warren, of course. It's one thing to access your Warren. It's another thing to carry it around.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess is the only way I can look at that.
But what if you are a Warren as some future
that's different. Yeah,
characters
that's different.
Will be? Amazing characters. All right, we need to stop.
Dude.
Let's
Okay, reel in the digression.
At least it was a Malazan digression.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is that the first? No.
It's one of the first, I guess. We always reach outside of the series because if all of our reaching into the series is too spoilerish.
Yeah, that's true. Baruch led Rake to a chamber low in the house. An old man lay on a cot. Baruch said, "As you see, he appears to be sleeping. He is named Mammoth." Rake asked if that was the historian that knew about the Jaghut tyrant. Baruch said, "Also a high priest of Drek." What?
Well, I know, right?
So this doddering old man that we haven't seen accomplish anything, all we hear is his eyes are watery and he's just kind of sitting in his chair, his worn out chair, studying. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's all we see Baruch doing is studying, but he's apparently pretty powerful. So
these
are some pretty tough old fellas.
Demons.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, he's cast some spells.
I mean, dude, he draw the attention. Rake is acknowledging this guy's pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Says a lot.
Yeah. Rake said, "That explains the cynicism in his writings. The worm of autumn breeds an unhappy lot."
I imagine so.
Yeah. The god of decay, for those that forgot.
Well,
we covered that earlier.
Yeah. Okay.
Initially, Baruch was surprised that Rake had read histories by Mammoth. But then he remembered that one would need hobbies with a life as long as Rake's. Rake asked what triggered the deep sleep. Baruch said, "That is the odd part. I admit to knowing little of earth magic. Driss is a warren I've never explored. I called on Mammoth, as I indicated to you, and upon his arrival I asked him to tell me all he knew of the Jaghut tyrant and the Barrow. He promptly sat down and closed his eyes. They've yet to open, and he's not uttered a single word since." Normally we would remind people what Driss is as a warren, but this is one of those situations where they call them Garden of the Moonisms, where what was said in this book isn't necessarily in line with the rest of the series. So just assume that Mammoth is a high priest of Drek, and then we will learn more about Drek later. It's a god of decay. But in the specifics of this Driss Warren, I would kind of just omit that right now because referring to it as earth magic is a little bit confusing.
Yes, very good.
Rake told Baruch that Mammoth had attempted to answer the question by a rather direct means, and now something had trapped him. Baruch exclaimed, "He traveled by Warren to the Draghut tyrant's barrow? The old fool!" Rake said, into a concentration of Talon sorcery, not to mention Jaghut Omtos Falak. On top of that, a woman with an Odotarl sword. He'll not come round until both the Talani Mass and the Odotarl have left the barrow. And even then, if he's not quick, the awakening Jaghut might take him. Baruch felt a chill. He said, take, as in possession? Rake nodded and said, a high priest is he? The Jaghut would find him very useful, not to mention the access Mamet provides to Drek. Do you know, Baruch, if this tyrant's capable of enslaving a goddess?
Whoa.
Baruch whispered, I don't know. Decembra fend. What a hornet's nest Mamet walked into. I mean,
yeah. It's like the perfect story. Does this remind you of something out of the Black Company novels?
Is that when I stopped reading it? Whenever my favorite character was imprisoned by something, and then
that could have been. That could have been because that was okay.
Book 5 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's down the line. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. For those of you that haven't heard of the Black Company books by Glenn Cook, Erikson has stated they are one of his inspirations for this series, and I can see it. They are good.
Yeah.
Up to a point, and this is my failing. Billy, you read further than me.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite character, something happened to him, and so I kind of lost interest after that. And I have a tendency, I couldn't power through. It's just too hard for me.
I went on through. I read to the end, but he has another new one out that I bought but haven't read yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoyed where it went. I had no problem with him switching gears to a guy that studied under this person. But I, like you and folks, for y'all both audience, y'all need to understand something. Kamraun turned me on to both of these series, and I'm forever thankful because Black Company is a way easier read. It's real fun, real bloody, real cool, and you're not following the good guys. I love the Black Company, dude. They're great. They're intriguing,
very flawed characters.
Yes, they are.
But I'll tell you what, the big bads in this. Okay. So there was a tyrant named the Dominator. The Dominator.
I'm so sorry, but the Dominator
has been imprisoned, and it's kind of like a sorceress prison, kind of like the Jaghut Tyrant here.
Yeah, very similar.
He had a queen, or an empress, I should say, and she was referred to just as the lady, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then they had these lieutenants called the 10 who were taken. And these lieutenants are really powerful.
Yeah, they are.
Think of them as high mage caliber people from the Malazan universe. And there's one called the Limper. There's one called the Hanged Man.
The Limper.
Yeah.
I forgot about the other ones. It's the Limper is the one that we see so much of.
Yeah.
He's a tenacious son of a gun. Oh,
and then there's like these magic flying carpets, and you follow the Black Company. It's a mercenary company, and they have somebody who's responsible for writing down the deeds of the Black Company.
Yeah.
Just a really good series. Up to the point where I lost. Series, man. I couldn't power through. I might go back and do it at some point.
At some point, yeah. It's not fantastic, but I enjoyed it. So much so that when it finished, I did go ahead and I read the first book of The Dread Empire by Glenn Cook as well.
Okay.
And enjoyed that one. I can't remember it. It was kind of forgettable, but it was intriguing. I like him. And again, thank you. Glenn Cook's great too.
Yeah. So for those of you that finished this series and you need something to take a break before you come back and reread this series, and that's going to happen because now that you've read it,
cleanser.
Likely, yeah, it's like the ginger at the sushi shop, right? You got to have it.
Right. Sure, I guess. I'm not bold enough to eat sushi. I don't eat fish much anyhow. So I'm a skirt.
Okay. I mean, there's some that you would like because it's got like fried shrimp in it and stuff. You know, it's not raw. Okay, digression over.
Wow.
I do find that it's an interesting question whether the tyrant could use Mamet as a conduit to enslave a goddess. And that is truly horrifying because the Bonecaster alone is bad enough.
Yeah. Oh, I'm like you. It just makes me wonder what the full power of the Tyrant Unleashed would look like.
The Tyrant Unleashed.
The Tyrant. That's a metal band for sure. I know there is a metal band called Tyrant. So
The Tyrant Unleashed.
No, just Tyrant.
Oh, okay. All right. Moving along. We are treated to a little montage, a la the movie The Sting. Secret gestures included. The old woman on the steps of Mamet's tenement threw out a signal. And this is the same one we've seen multiple times throughout the book, always with the pipe. She's hitting it on her shoes. Sparks are raining down. She's lighting it, throwing sticks in the street, signaling things. Circle Breaker picked up the signal and returned with his own. He ran his hand through his hair. He was nearing panic as he felt Turban Orr's agents closing in on him. He was certain Orr would remember the same guard had been present during all his meetings by Despot's Barbican. Circle Breaker continued on until he was near the Phoenix Inn, where he sent out yet another signal, where he turned his sword to the side so the scabbard hit the wall. Once he sent out his signal, he continued on toward Lakefront. The eel orders Circle Breaker to make only one more contact and he'd be done. Things were coming to a head and Circle Breaker didn't expect to live much longer, but he'd do what was asked of him until his death. Mies and Arilta picked up Circle Breaker's signal and set into motion. Mies retraced Circle Breaker's steps back to the tenement, and the old woman on the steps gave another signal. This lady's smoking a pipe all day.
Yeah, she is. That's her job, dude.
How'd you like to get paid to sit and smoke a pipe on the front steps of a building all day?
I'm sorry to say this, but my job is almost about that bad. It's about that easy.
But you know what's crazy is you'd have to be a nervous wreck, always watching for signals and passersby.
Oh, my dude.
Yeah, your nerves would be shot.
It'd be awful. Yeah, it'd be awful. No wonder she's smoking.
Mies continued past the building and turned into an alley at the end of the block. A door opened for her a third of the way down the alley, and she entered a dimly lit room. She passed a couple of doorways and jogged up a flight of stairs. Apsalar, previously sorry, hadn't been impressed with her first sight of Darujistan. Even though she had been filled with excitement and anticipation, all of it had seemed too familiar. Note how some of the memories are retained from the possession, similar to her knowing Daru now, though she had no knowledge of Daru before the possession.
Kind of like the bleed effect from the Assassin's Creed games, huh?
Yes, yeah.
They never went anywhere with that, but that's where that's where they were supposed to go.
Yeah. Now, this is important because it displays how she retained a lot from the past 2 years, even though she doesn't outright remember it. What else has she retained?
Well, that's a great question. Or is it a great question? Sorry. Sorry.
Crocus had been disappointed with her reaction and had made haste in taking her to Uncle Mammoth's residence after stabling Call's most ill-behaved horse. No doubt he wanted to impress her with a tour of the greatest city in all the land.
Yeah. Come on, Crocus.
Get your head on straight, boy. The journey through the city had left Crocus in a continual storm of confusion. Apsalar continued to catch him off guard, and all he wanted to do was to throw her in someone else's lap. Yet he questioned the veracity of these thoughts, as he asked why he felt so miserable about it. Crocus walked out of Mammoth's study into the outer room. Moby chirped and stuck out his tongue at Crocus. He's a sassy little thing.
Yes, he is. I'm getting the next tomcat I'm getting. It's going to be a ginger cat. It's going to name that son of a gun Moby because reds are sassy cats, dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought torties were the sassy ones.
Are they?
Yeah.
I don't know. The red one I had was a sassy thing. He'd pout.
Okay.
He'd pout and he'd do one of those where he'd get mad at you and puff at you and then turn around and put his back to you until he couldn't. It'd last about 20 seconds maybe. I think it's about the longest he ever made it. But he was like a little kid. He'd put his back to you and you try not to laugh. He'd turn around at you and he'd forgive you and come back up. He pouted. I never had a cat pout like that dude did.
I'm assuming this was when he was hungry and you were like,
No.
It's not dinner time yet.
Well, that's part of it. But he's always, he was pouty about a lot of things though. But he'd get his feelings hurt.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I would name him Moby, but not Mooby.
Okay. All right. Crocus said he didn't understand why Mammoth wasn't present, noting that he seemed to have been gone for at least 2 days. Apsalar asked if that was unusual, and Crocus informed her it was indeed unusual. Crocus mentioned that perhaps Rallick knew something about it. Apsalar asked who Rallick was, and Crocus distractedly mentioned he was an assassin friend. She shot to her feet, eyes wide with terror. Read the room, dude. Young girl, new location, doesn't know anyone, and I'm just going to casually mention, hey, he's an assassin friend. What?
Oh, my good gracious.
I guess he's a little distracted with Uncle Mammoth not being there. But, I mean, still.
Uncle Mammoth and Shiny.
Oh, and his brain's in a tizzy.
Yeah.
He doesn't know. Yeah. His heart, what does he do?
Oh, my God.
Crocus noted her distress and asked her what was wrong. He looked around the room, searching for a clue as to the source of her distress, half expecting a demon to have risen out of the floor. He saw nothing. Apsalar told him she wasn't sure, but it was as if she was about to remember something, but the memory never came. Crocus was in the middle of a sentence when there was a knock on the door. He brightened since he assumed it was Mammoth and mentioned that perhaps he had forgotten his keys. Apsalar pointed out the door had been unlocked. She's very observant.
Yes, she is.
Crocus opened the door to find Mies, and he began to ask what she was doing there. She interrupted him and told him to be quiet. Once she entered the apartment, she saw Apsalar and her eyes widened. She then turned back to Crocus and said, "Good, I found you, lad. You've seen no one since getting back?" Crocus said no, but Apsalar said they had seen the stabler. She then asked Mies if they had met before. Crocus told Mies that Apsalar had lost her memory and agreed that they'd stabled Call's horse. Mies demanded, "Why?" Then interrupted Crocus's explanation. She said, "Never mind. The stabler shouldn't prove a problem. Well, we're in luck." Crocus said, "Damn it, Mies, what's going on?" Mies looked in his eyes and said, "That Darl guard you killed the other night, the one in the garden. They've got your name and description, lad. Don't ask me how, but the Darls are talking high gallows when you're caught." The blood drained from Crocus's face, and he jerked his head toward Apsalar. He was about to say something, then shut his mouth again. He thought, no, she truly didn't remember, but it must have been her. He then collapsed in Mammoth's chair. Mies said, "We've got to hide you, lad. Both of you, I guess. But don't you worry, Crocus. Me and Arilta, we'll take care of you till something can be worked out." Man, these two, Mies and Arilta, they embody the definition of ride or die, don't they?
Yeah,
If they are caught helping Crocus, they'll be executed as well.
Yeah, I know it. And I really love the Phoenix Inn crowd almost as much as the Bridge Burners because they have that same loyalty to each other.
Yes.
And I think that's part of the reason why I like them is because of that just love/loyalty for each other. I dig it. I love
That's
it.
pretty crazy.
Yeah. Again, the thing that I think that makes Erikson's book so good again is you nailed it right when we talked about favorites. Our favorites are always going to be humans because we're humans and the book's written very humanly. So it's like humans wandering through this world of crazed gods and ascendants, and we're just kind of like hapless subjects of their capricious whims. You know, you're like, wow, kind of rough.
Yeah. Crocus stared at the wall and whispered, "I don't believe this. She betrayed me. Damn her." Mies looked at Apsalar, who said, "It's a guess, but I say a girl named Chalice." Mies briefly closed her eyes and said, "Chalice Darl, the court's honey these days." Her features softened with compassion, and she looked down at Crocus. She said, "Oh, lad, that's the way of it, then." His head jerked up, and he said, "It isn't anymore."
Good Clint Eastwood. Love it. Go ahead and make my day. You feel lucky, punk? Sorry.
Mies grinned and said, "Right. For now, we just sit tight till night, then it's the rooftops for us. Don't worry, we'll handle things, lad." The thought of Mies going on the rooftops and jumping from rooftop to rooftop after that visual of the person that physically what this looks like, I mean, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I'm sure she can handle it, apparently.
Yeah, apparently she can, yeah. Apsalar stood and introduced herself to Mies and thanked her for helping Crocus. Mies's grin broadened, and she said, "Apsalar, huh? Well, guess the rooftops will be no problem for you, then." Apsalar agreed, somehow knowing she was right. Mies said, "Good enough," then proposed they find some alcohol. Crocus asked Mies if she knew where Mammoth may have gone. Mies told him she couldn't help him there. Surratt was watching the front of the tenement from a nearby rooftop. Rake had provided her with the details of finding Opan's boy servant, and the search had not proved difficult. Surratt had encountered the coin bearer before when her agents had chased him across the rooftops 2 weeks ago. She had commanded them to leave him be after he entered the Phoenix Inn. If she had suspected what she now knew, Opan's presence would have ended that very night. She planned to use a spell of blurring and staying in the shadows to replace and impersonate Arilta, who was hiding in a shadowed nook in the street below Surratt. There would be no suspicion from Mies, who was inside with the coin bearer. For now, Surratt waited. She thought, patience ever rewards. Murillo and Kruppa arrived at the Phoenix Inn. Murillo noted Crocus and Apsalar weren't present, which meant they were with Mammoth. Kruppa drew in a breath of the sweaty, smoky air and said, "Ah, civilization. Kruppa believes your assessment is accurate, friend. If so, then we might as well rest here, drinking and supping for an hour or two." He strode into the inn. Some Phoenix Inn regulars were seated at Kruppa's table, and they gathered their tankards and pitcher and moved, apologizing in the process. Kruppa gave them a gracious nod and settled in his usual chair, emitting a loud sigh. Murillo brushed dust from his shirt and frowned at his condition. He said, "I look forward to a bath. Apparently Scurv saw Rallick in here earlier, talking with some stranger. Since then, nobody's seen him." Quick reminder, Scurv is the bartender for those that may have forgotten.
Yeah.
Kruppa dismissively waved his hand and said, "Kind Salty arrives." Salty dropped off a pitcher of ale, and Kruppa wiped his tankard, then filled it. Murillo asked, "Weren't we supposed to report to Baruch?" Kruppa said, "All in due time. First, we must recover from our ordeals. What if Kruppa were to lose his voice in very mid-sentence of said report? What would avail Baruch of that?" He raised his tankard and took a large drink. Wasn't Kruppa the one who was in a rush to get back to Darujistan in the last chapter? Was it so he could eat?
Yeah. That and drink and torture his companions mentally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good assessment there. Murillo scanned the crowd for a moment, then he straightened in his seat. He filled his tankard, then asked, "So now that you know what Rallick and I are up to, what do you plan to do about it?" Kruppa said, "Kruppa? Why, nothing but good, of course. Timely assistance and such. No need for blatant fretting, friend Murillo. By all means, proceed as planned. Think of wise Kruppa as no more than a kindly chaperone." Murillo groaned. He said, "Hood's breath. We were doing fine without your help. The best thing you could do for us is stay out of our way. Don't get involved." Kruppa said, "And abandon my friends to the fates? Nonsense." Murillo drained his tankard and said, "I'm going home. You can make the report to Baruch in a week's time for all I care. And when Rallick finds out you know all about our plans, well, Kruppa, I'd hate to be in your boots." Kruppa waved his hand again. He said, "See, Salty Jan, upon her tray is Kruppa's supper. Rallick Nom's nasty daggers and nastier temper pale to insignificance before such repast as now approaches. Good night to you, then, Murillo, until the morrow." He's more concerned about the food than Rallick's temper.
Well,
amazing.
It is amazing, but we know a little bit more about the man. But I can just hear. I love the man that reads the audible versions of Ralph Lister when he does Kruppa.
Mm-hmm.
And you come close. I love it.
Oh, take it easy.
he's ultimately Kruppa. I love that dude's voice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gracious.
Murillo stared down at Kruppa, then said, "Good night, Kruppa." He left through the kitchen door, where he was accosted by someone from across the alley. Murillo said, "That you, Rallick?" The shadowy figure said, "No. Fear me not, Murillo. I have a message to you from the Eel. Call me Circle Breaker. The message concerns Councilman Turbin Orr." We don't get to hear the rest of his statement. Rallick traveled across the rooftops. His hunt was slowed by the need for silence. He didn't plan on speaking with Ocelot, and he had one shot at killing him. If he missed, Ocelot's use of sorcery would prove the deciding factor. Something came up in his memory, and he reached for a pouch Baruch had given him as a reward for work well done. The pouch contained reddish dust. Baruch had told him it had magic deadening properties. Rallick had resisted placing his trust in the powder. He wondered if it had lost its efficacy in the years since he had received it. Would it prove a match to Ocelot's powers? What else have we encountered in this book that is reddish-brown and has magic deadening properties?
Auditoral.
Yes.
Yes. This is the part I was talking about. That
Right.
what he does here is what really makes me really like Rallick for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's really quite simple and doesn't seem like it's much, but
Well,
it is.
Yeah. Rallick had determined that Ocelot would try to catch Call as he passed through Worry Gate from the east as he entered Darujistan. The best vantage point was in Krull's belfry. That's an odd coincidence that this is the same belfry that the assassin that had nearly killed Crocus earlier in the book had attacked him from.
Yeah. And I'm assuming there's no coincidence in it at all.
Yeah.
But yeah,
if Opan
I
has
like
anything to say about it.
Yeah, well, that's true, but but we obviously know somebody because someone died there, and that's what awoke a certain somebody.
Yes. Rallick removed the pouch from his bag. Baruch had told him that whatever the dust covered would be impervious to magic. It also had an area effect. Rallick had questions. How much of an area? Did it wear off? Finally, Baruch had told him not to let it touch his skin. Rallick had asked if it was poisonous. Baruch had said no. The powder changes some people. There is no predicting such changes, however. Best not to take the chance, Rallick. And this is what you're talking about.
Yes.
The significant risk that he's taking here by doing what he's about to do.
Yeah.
Rallick was sweating. He knew finding Ocelot was already a slim chance. Call's death would ruin everything, and it would strip Rallick's last claim to humanity. The price of failure in this endeavor had become very high. He angrily hissed, "Justice! It has to mean something. It has to!" He untied the pouch and scraped out some powder. It felt like rust between his fingers. That's it? He wondered, and thought that perhaps it had deteriorated. He shrugged and massaged it into his skin, starting with his face. He muttered, "What changes? I don't feel any changes." He used up the last of the powder under his clothing as best he could. Finally, he noted the inside of the bag was stained with the powder. He flipped it inside out and stuffed it into his belt. He grimaced and thought, now the hunt continues. Somewhere out there, an assassin waited with his eyes on Jamet's Worry Road. Rallick's eyes fixed on Kroll's belfry tower, and he whispered, "I'll find you, Ocelot. And magic or no magic, you won't hear me. You won't even feel my breath on your neck until it's too late. I swear it." Rallick began his ascent. And thus the chapter ends. For standout moments, Rallick realizing the crowd parted in front of him and his amusement upon noticing it was good. It's about time he noticed.
Yeah, it is. It is. I love it too.
Assassins are supposed to be observant, I would think. You know, funny.
I guess it's only it just had noticed that. Yeah, I love it.
Learning about Rake's values and principles, absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and like I said, it's a real nice surprise again that because we've been really ambiguous on what Rake is and on which side people stand, but I think Rake is the real good guy of the series. Mm-hmm. One of them. So there's lots of good guys.
There's lots of good guys. Yes,
lots of good guys. I'm sorry,
yes.
Lots of good guys. One of the many great good guys of the series.
Yeah, but some of the choices he makes later on really exemplify what you're talking about.
Yes.
Mamet is a high priest of Drek. That still surprises me. You know, he just seems so innocuous.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Circle Breaker's continued commitment to saving Darujhistan, even though his life is in danger.
See, I think that this may be one of the reasons why I love Darujhistan. Every character that is from here, loves their city and talks about it. It's kind of like my beloved Lone Star State here. So I'm assuming that if there was schools that these kids went to, that Daru history would be one of the first things they learned before they learned world history. You
think that's the 7th grade? Daru history?
So, yeah. I know Texas history was.
Born on a rumor.
Yeah. Oh my God! But there's a lot of pride, though. These people have a lot of pride for their city, and I get it, dude. Like I said, that's part of one of the reasons I think I love this city in this series, because it's crucial. It's a linchpin location throughout the whole series.
And then Apslar just craps all over it when this is
it? Yeah, city. Meh.
Broke Crocus's heart. Twice he got his heart broken this episode.
Yeah.
On that topic, Arilta and Misa's ride or die mentality when it comes to protecting him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. The risks they're willing to put themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, so there's that loyalty with this with these group is really something else.
Yeah. And then Kruppa prioritizing dinner over updating Baruch on the happenings in the Gadrobi Hills.
Oh, good gracious. I love Kruppa. I love him and I hate him at the same time. He's so irritating, but he's so funny. He's perfectly irritating when he's supposed to be, and he's perfectly funny when he needs to be.
Yeah. And then finally, Rallick putting the Odotarl on his skin, knowing it could cause something bad to happen. And his level of commitment to saving his friend is commendable. Bros for life.
Absolutely. It's the way that Rallick has been, when I first read this book, I'd always liked him a little bit, but it's that moment for me, for something, when putting the dust on his skin, just not even knowing what it's going to do. I'm like you, it elevated him up and me, and like, wow, dude, what they're doing for Cole, because I believe Cole is unaware of what his brothers are doing, man.
Probably he was too drunk to know anything about it. Yeah.
Yeah. They were just doing it for him because out of just love, man. That's one thing I love about this group here. This is a lot of love. This is a love group here, and there's some pretty rough fellas and gals.
Yeah,
got to have a family somewhere.
A lot of people would have given up on somebody that just was in a drunken stupor all the time.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
would have just kind of let them just drown themselves in the drink.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not my problem. I'll just leave him be. Maybe he'll be all right. I'll find out later.
Yeah. All right. So that was an exposition-heavy chapter, kind of the calm before the storm, I think. So we're getting there.
Very much so.
It's going to be a lot of action from here on out, pretty much.
Yeah, it is, and it's like I said. This is really heating up, dude. I can't believe how close we are to being. We're not that far away from being done with the book. I mean, chapter-wise.
Right, and it only took from October to June, roughly. So
yeah, not bad.
Yeah, not too bad at all. All right, you got any final thoughts?
No, man, great episode. I enjoyed enjoyed everything about it tonight. Great job.
Yeah. All right, thanks everybody. See you next week.
See you next week.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at HorseFrogProductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.